Good morning, everyone. How is everyone this morning? So pleased that you've come to join us for the Science of Business webinar. I'm going to get going in a couple of moments, and I just want to say hi to a few people. We've got people from all over the UK coming and joining for today's webinar. Some of my existing clients, which is great to see you all. And if you haven't sort of interacted with me before, a really warm welcome, and thanks very much for coming and having a look at what we've got to offer today. So anyway, without much further ado, I'll get on with the webinar, and I'll start with an introduction of myself. So I'm Justin Turner, and I've recently written a book which is going to be published on the 6th of September. It's called The Science of Business. And it's going to go through, why science holds the answers to our business problems. And it's a kind of an area of interest of mine, science. And I think that interest stems from maybe a bit of my weird and wonderful background in business. So my day job is I run an accountancy practice. I've got 9 members of staff working for me, but also alongside that, I've been working since 2011 for Northumbria University. I've been teaching things like entrepreneurship, innovation. More recently, I've been working on the government-backed Help to Grow programme, which sort of gives you a bit of a background where my academic knowledge is stemming from. So I sort of hope you're going to see that come through today. In my personal life, I'm a really keen triathlete. I'm into outdoor pursuits, mad keen. I've got a camper van, travel all around the UK. And in my book, I've sort of threaded that into the kind of the journey and things that I've maybe related things to. And I've got some funny stories for you today as well, and some really important business lessons. That's why we're here today, is to learn about those business lessons. So why science? I mean, that's the million-dollar question. Why have I focused on science? Well, I want to help business owners break the vicious cycle. And I think they are in a vicious cycle. And I've created this little diagram to sort of illustrate that to you. It's that you've got business operations happening all of the time. And usually a problem occurs in our business. And the business owner does what I call firefighting. They try and solve the problem. Maybe a client's unhappy about something that's going on in the business or the way that they've been managed. And you've got maybe several of these problems happening at the same time. So they're trying to fight these fires all the time, and they're looking for answers. And then what happens is they resolve that problem and they move on. The problem's forgotten. And the business owner kind of struggles on, and business operations continue, and then another problem occurs, and we go back into this vicious cycle of firefighting all the time. I think this is where science has got some answers, because when a problem occurs, have you ever thought about applying some science to what we're doing so we can actually address some of the fundamental root cause problems? Well, and here's one of those problems. And this is a client said this to me one day: I hate my staff. I mean, that's a pretty strong word to be using. And I mean, hate is about, you haven't got things right in your business. Things aren't right. And this is where I think science can help us. I'm really passionate about it. And if you think about my team that I've got at my accountancy firm, they are the answer to me having a work-life balance. They are just an extension of the business. They work to the goals, the values, everything that I stand for. They're replicating that into the business. And I would never use the word hate. But have you ever thought about the science behind staff management? I mean, that's a really important question. It's actually staff management. It's about social science. It's about psychology. But have you ever read any of the social science research about it? Have you ever read anything to do with psychology when it comes to managing staff? I think one of the observations of myself as looking at science is that I'm a starter and I'm not a finisher. And there's something called a Belbin test, which tells you how you work in a team environment. And effectively, it's psychology. And if you look at me, although I'm a great starter of things, an organization will not move on unless you have people like me as a starter who are prepared to kick off projects, write books, do webinars, but I'm historically bad at finishing things. I mean, just talk to my wife about the various home improvement projects that we've got going on at home. I'm not particularly great at finishing things. So if I can have a team around me who have got different skills, then that's going to complement me. And lo and behold, you know, business owners think that they need to employ people who are just like them. No, you don't. You need different sets of people. You need to embrace that everyone is different. Our brains are wired differently. I want you to do something for me. I want you to cross your arms and then cross them the other way. Doesn't that feel odd? And that's because your brain is wired in a particular way. And you've got to accept that. I did a little test around the office earlier today. 3 of us struggled with that, doing it the other way. But one of the members of the team, he could do it no problem at all. But it's an interesting concept about how the brain functions and why you shouldn't just generalize and say, this isn't working, I hate my staff. It's about breaking that vicious cycle. Now, I'm not going to talk about staff management much further in today's webinar, but I'm going to focus on 5 things that I think are going to really have a big impact on your business and give you something that you can take away today and apply in your business. So here are the 5 things I'm going to go through today. Number 1, what does science tell business? Number 2, I'm going to tell you a little story about hand washing, and that's really about processes. The third one is I'm going to tell you about the power of the moon. It's not some magic, it's actually about simple solutions. Number 4, I'm going to tell you a really funny story, and I'll make a bit of fun of myself, about drinking a litre of beetroot juice. And then number 5, I'm going to tell you a story about Herman the Sausage Man, which is a little story about marketing. So let's start with, what does science tell business? I think more importantly is, why doesn't business listen? I watched a TED talk many years ago, about 10 years ago, and it really sort of excited me about science in business. And it was a TED talk by a guy called Dan Pink. And he said there's a mismatch between what science knows and what business does. Isn't that an interesting comment? Because I think that's because businesses are historically wonderful at ignoring scientific knowledge and just blasting on and just pushing on with what they think is best. And they never go and consider the actual science. And I've got 2 great examples to show you of that, to prove that science does work. So the image on the left-hand side is something called the candle problem. And it was developed by someone called Carl Duncker. And it was developed in 1945. And Sam Gutzberg experimented with this candle problem in 1962 to look at financial incentives. And the general premise was that there were 2 groups of people. One had a financial incentive and the other had no incentive at all. And they were given a candle, a box of drawing pins, and some matches. The objective is to get the candle attached to the wall in the fastest time possible. And interestingly, the results of that were that the unincentivized group performed better. So why on earth do we go into car sales rooms all around the land and we ask the members of staff, how are you incentivized? Oh, through a financial incentive program. They don't work. If you go and look at the science, you will find that they don't work. Financial incentives don't work. Incentivization is slightly different. Financial incentives and incentivization are the last thing we should probably be doing with our teams of people. And just to tell you how that candlestick problem is resolved, is most people don't realize that the box holding the drawing pins is actually something that you can tack to the wall and place the candle within the box. The piece of research, it's really quite interesting. It talks about something called functional fixedness, which is a slightly different conversation. But science isn't really being applied. And yet business is blasting on, still doing things that we know don't work. So why are we doing it? The other one is a great example I've got is about James Webb. This wonderful telescope that we've built, we've blasted it off into space. And we've flown it 1.5 million miles away from Earth, and we've positioned it in something called a Lagrange point, which is a point which has got low gravitational interference. But we've done all of this, yet when it comes to science, we don't listen to the scientists sometimes. Why is business not listening to the scientists? I don't know. And if you think about other things as well, we can land a rover on Mars with pinpoint accuracy, drive it around remotely. Yet when it comes to something like climate change, we just ignore the scientists. And a great case in point is our Prime Minister. In fact, is he the Prime Minister? I haven't seen the news this morning. Our Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, he was a climate skeptic. And then he was shown 11 slides, just 11 slides by the Chief Scientific Officer, and it changed his entire outlook. And that's what science can do. When it comes to business, I want you to, this is a little job for you to do, is when you want to change something or you want to improve something, I want you to think about science. I want you to think, can I find something? And we've got this wonderful thing called Google and Google Scholar, and we can go and find materials. We can find out whether we can substantiate what we're doing with real science, and ask yourself the question, just because everyone else is doing it, does that mean it actually works? That's your first job as a scientist, is to be curious. My second point, wash your hands. You know, how do you get infection rates to fall in a hospital? Well, you get people to wash their hands. Did you know that 24 to 40% of the cases of diarrhea could actually be prevented with better hand hygiene? Simple as that, better hand hygiene. Yet the problem comes is that we don't have a process to follow. And there's no necessarily set point in which someone is saying you need to wash your hands now. I want to implore you to create processes in your business. And I've got a couple of really great suggestions, and I will prove to you that this works. Could you reduce operating theatre deaths, mortality rate, by 1/3? You know, that's a pretty big innovation. That's a pretty big task. Yet I came across this medical research article. It was a medical journal written by a doctor, American doctor called Atul Gawande. And he had done just this. He'd been approached by the World Health Organization, and they said, could you reduce or improve operating theatre safety in both the developing world and the developed world? Now, that's a pretty tall order. And how he did that was through a checklist, a piece of paper. He reduced the operating theatre mortality rate by 1/3 through a piece of paper. He didn't even believe his own results when his research assistant did the analysis of all of his study. He made the research assistant go and check it all again because he just didn't believe it. But that's the point, is actually processes can be incredibly powerful. And I think sometimes we forget about that. Before I go through why you should do that, I just want you to think about something else there. Is that I've read something about medical research, but I've applied it to my own business. I've taken some knowledge there and I've applied it elsewhere. Just because science is in the medical industry doesn't mean that we can't learn from it as well. So what did I do? I realized after reading Atul Gawande's research paper that actually mastery is close to impossible. If you look in the press, you will see catastrophic mistakes happening all of the time. There was the terrible, terrible case of Deepwater Horizon, the underwater oil leak. It killed people. It was fundamentally happened because a lack of process was happening. If you want to create a culture within your organization of education and mentoring, process documents are really, really important. They allow you to capture knowledge for the future. It's going to be a great way of being able to grow and scale your business. Checklists are the simplest way of implementing that. You just have to create a list. We create lists all the time. What are the things I need to do today? You make a list. Just think about it in terms of when you do a job, create that list. And all you need is a ticky box. on a Word document, and then you can replicate it out to everyone. They're incredibly powerful. And we've done this ourselves in our own organization. When we do personal tax returns for people, the number of combinations of income and investments that people have got are, they're almost incalculable. So we've created a standard checklist. I cannot keep 180, I think, tax returns that we've got to do in a year. I can't keep 180 clients' information in my head on all of the different combinations that they might have. So we disseminated something onto a document. We call it a TRQ form, a tax return questionnaire. And we tick various boxes, and it means that we don't miss anything. And they're incredibly simple, and we've found over the years that it means that we're not asking the same questions to our clients over and over. It saves us time. We don't make mistakes. We are getting closer to mastery. Create processes, they're really important. Those longer process documents where we describe how we do something, they take a long time for us to produce them. So we do have those, and we've got one particular that works really well when a new member of staff starts. We call it the new starter process document, but they come second. We can put checklists in first, so go off and do that. Medical science tells us that we should be doing it as well. So my third point is about the power of the moon. Now, I'm not going to tell you about magic crystals or anything like that. I'm going to tell you about simple solutions and why they are the best. A friend of mine, and I've written this, I've taken this from his Facebook feed. He put a post on Facebook and it said, "It's a full moon tonight. Watch out, everybody. More crime happens on nights with a full moon." His hypothesis was that the human body is made up of 60% water. So therefore, because the moon affects the tides of the oceans, therefore we would be affected by the gravitational pull of the moon, and it was causing more crime to happen. Fortunately, I was aware of something, and it's called Occam's razor. You might have heard of Occam's razor before, but the general principle is it's a philosophy, and scientists use Occam's razor day in and day out. And it's if you're presented with two hypotheses, always choose the simplest explanation or the simplest solution. So my friend's hypothesis was the moon, gravity is causing crime to go up. My hypothesis is that maybe when there's a full moon, there's more light in the sky, and the crime of opportunity, because that bicycle that's been left out by a child suddenly becomes visible. They can actually see what they're doing in terms of breaking into a shed. And that's a much simpler explanation about why something has happened, rather than trying to prove the moon's gravity. Just as a side note, this has been studied. Really, I mean, honestly, it's been studied that, and scientists have done something called a meta-analysis, looking at lots of other studies about whether the moon's gravity does actually affect crime. So it has seriously been studied. The outcome of that is a no, it doesn't, by the way. Scientists have told us, no, it doesn't. Yet we see this stuff on social media all the time. The point I want to make about business is, if you've got different solutions to a problem, try and pick the simplest. And I said to my students during an innovation lecture recently, how do we increase staff productivity? And some of the answers I got back, I mean, they were mind-blowing. Some of these answers were: ban talking in the office, send staff on enhanced training, put in place enhanced monitoring. My solution was to put in a second monitor. I'd seen a piece of research that Microsoft had done that if you particularly worked in the financial market, having two monitors will see certain tasks increase in productivity by 50%. Find the simple solutions. Ask yourself whether it's a simple solution and apply Occam's razor. It's so easy when someone points it out to you, but it's really, really powerful. My fourth point, drinking a litre of beetroot juice. I formed a beetroot juice drinking habit. But it led me to data discovery, and let me just explain this to you. So I'm a really keen triathlete, and I was a few years into my triathlon journey, and I was doing races, but I wanted to go faster. I wanted to be better. And I came across a scientific study that said if I drank beetroot juice, it would improve my sporting performance. Fantastic news. Without doing any more training, no more swimming, running or biking, I can just drink this magic elixir and I'll be able to go faster. I mean, absolutely wonderful. So off I went to the supermarket and I found a company that sold the beetroot juice. And the only problem is when I looked at the study, it required me to drink half a litre of beetroot juice before 12 hours before doing the race, and it also required me to drink another half a litre 2 hours before racing. Problem is, if you've ever drank beetroot juice, it's really earthy and thick, and I didn't have a taste for it. I mean, I gipped and I writhed and I forced this stuff down. The first half a litre 12 hours before, I could space it out a little bit. I could sort of make it work for me. But 2 hours before, when I was racing, I felt bloated. What was I going to do? I said to a friend one day, I was like, I can't go on. I just get this beetroot torture thing. Do you do this before racing? And she says to me, Justin, do you not know there's a company that produce a little sports shot, 30 mils, and it's equivalent to drinking half a litre of beetroot juice? I mean, I could have cried. So that's what I started doing. And going back to simple solutions, there is always a simpler solution. But I think there's an important point for business is someone had actually gone off and done a study. They'd gone off and analysed data. They'd pull together participants, they'd use scientific rigor to study whether beetroot juice worked. We had a group that didn't have any beetroot juice and we had a group that did, and they measured their sporting performance and how they improved. Now that's about data analysis and that's about data discovery. So when it came to my triathlon journey, I started looking for other data. It's what I do in my business anyway. And these were two bits of just example data that I found. One was to do with something called FTP, functional threshold power. That's how much power I can push through a bike pedal at any particular moment. And the image on the left is showing me doing an interval training session where I am trying to push the watts. I'm not a very good biker, so I'm always trying to increase that threshold, but it's about data. Isn't this exciting? The other thing I discovered, it was during lockdown, I discovered that I was taking during a run 157 steps per minute. Found another piece of science that told me the ideal number to hit is 180 steps per minute. And that image on the right is actually the Great North Run. You can see the crowds of people pushing my cadence down, and then I start hitting the right numbers and then I start getting tired. But I've improved upon that number and I've got better. To tell you sort of whether this sort of thing works, well, it does. I came in the top 3% at the Great North Run. I improved my time, another improvement. But you can do this in your own business. And I want you to go and start thinking about data in your own business. These are some top tips I've got for you. Number one, get your bookkeeping under control. Management accounting data will tell you all sorts of things. There are only 3 ways we can make more money. Has anyone ever told you that? There's only 3 ways that you can make more money. We can sell more, we can cut costs, or we can increase prices. It's as simple as that. So if you want to cut costs, you better get your bookkeeping under control so you know what costs and what you're spending in different areas. Sometimes about increasing prices, about knowledge, through management accounting. So that's an easy piece of low-hanging fruit. We have to do our bookkeeping for our taxes. So why not turn that into useful data and useful information? Number 2, review your marketing data. If you send out email newsletters, find out how many people open them, how many people click the links in it. And the next time you're about to send one, see whether you can improve upon it. What about this changing the subject line? What's the best practice for subject lines? Go and investigate. Marketing is one of the most exciting areas I think of business, because it's like experiments. It's like science experiments. We're just experimenting all the time just to try and get marketing improvement. Number 3 on that list is about looking at time data. Time data is so powerful. Time is the one commodity I can't just go out and buy more of. It's finite. Once it's gone, it's gone. We've used this to great effect over the years. One was I appeared in the stopwatch with in the office, with the stopwatch, and I timed how long a task took to take. And this was putting a purchase invoice into our accounting software. We then implemented a piece of technology that did some of the data entry. It used magic behind the scenes, information technology, but to do that task for us. So if you go off and analyze it, and we use other time data as well, my team track time into projects. So we might have agreed a fixed fee for a client, but they'll still track their time so we can see how long something's taken. And we've used that again to great effect. Going back to those only 3 things we can do to make more money, we've had to increase the prices of certain clients because we're spending more time with them. But we can prove it scientifically. It's much easier to have a conversation with a client if you can say, look, we only quoted you for an hour and a half last year, but we've actually spent 4 hours doing your work. We're going to have to increase your prices. To the same hand, we've actually in the last year reduced a few clients' prices because we didn't spend as much time as we were expecting as well. 4th on the list is use software tools. Most bits of software come with inbuilt analytics. If you look at going back to email marketing, if you use something like MailChimp, it's got inbuilt analytics. Go and have a look at that. How many people look at your website? There's something called Google Analytics. Try and use smart software to build up data and help you with the analysis. The 5th one is onboarding is best. What do I mean by that? Well, onboarding clients is taking on new clients. That's one of the best sources of data. We use this piece of proposal software to engage with clients. And every time a client accepts, it starts building up an analytics dashboard. And when I log into that analytics dashboard, I can see how many clients we've got. I can see what our projected recurring revenue will be in a year's time. I can see how many proposals that we have sent that haven't been accepted and the average time to accept a proposal. Now, interestingly, the time it takes to accept a proposal is a really interesting piece of data, or a piece of information. We've turned data into information there. When I log in, it takes a couple of hours for a client to accept a proposal. That means that we've done a great job of helping the client understand what we'll do for them, helping the client understand how we will undertake the service, what they're going to get. So they don't have any questions. They get the proposal, they check the price, and then they accept. Find those bits of data, start thinking about data, and think about constant improvement. In my book, I talk about an innovation concept called marginal gains, and you can use data with marginal gains to find constant improvements. My final point is about Herman, the sausage man. Why is marketing so hard to do? That's the $1 million question. And I was alluding to that before. It's about experimentation. Now, when it came to my first business back in 2004, myself and my friend Dom, we set up a website development business. So we developed our own website, and then we sent an email around to everyone that we knew to say, we're up and running. Would you, be able to give us some work, please? Within a couple of hours, I'd had a contact form inquiry. I mean, this is so exciting. This guy called Herman Ogmeyer had a sausage factory, and he specialized in this gourmet German sausage. And he had a really strong wholesale business, and he wanted to expand into the retail sector. Now, I was super excited, picked up the office landline and got straight on the phone to Herman. The problem was, it was my best friend Ben playing a practical joke on me. Really mean of him. But something really interesting came out of the back of that. is a conversation that I had with Ben led to me winning a contract with his dad's construction business. And that contract was fantastic over the years. We did loads and loads of work for that business. We helped them with some branding. We sort of sorted out some of the branding problems. We built websites for them. We did business cards. We did graphic design work. It was great. And it's because I'd started to educate my friend Ben about how we can do things with web technologies. I started telling him about online advertising and things like analytics and what you can now do with technology. What I didn't realize until many years later, that I was applying one of the key principles of human persuasion. Now, I think this is one of the most important marketing books that has ever been written. And it's written by a guy called Robert Cialdini. In 1984, he wrote this. And within the 1984 copy, there are only 6 principles of human persuasion. And he added a 7th one later, which is called unity. But everything, if you want to get someone to buy from you, it has to revolve around the 7 principles of human persuasion. No exceptions. Why am I doing this webinar? I want you to prove this to you. I've written a book and I want to become credible. I want you to see that actually Justin might know what he's talking about here. I'm wanting to create something called authority. That's one of the principles of human persuasion, authority. I'm also, hopefully, you might like me as well. That's one of the principles of human persuasion, to be liked. This is some homework I've got for you. I haven't got time to go through all of the 7 principles of human persuasion, but I want you to go and have a look at them. And then what I want you to do is apply them, not just to your marketing, but to your sales as well. Your salespeople should be educated, if you have salespeople, should be educated on the 7 principles of human persuasion. All of your marketing needs to build in those principles of human persuasion as well. It's a really, really sort of important part of your marketing. So we're here about marketing, and I'm going to prove it a little bit more. I'd like, if you could find it in the goodness of your heart, to maybe pre-order my book. I will give you a signed copy if you do that, and I'll even put a personalized message in it for you. And that, in the 7 principles of human persuasion, is what's called reciprocity. I will give you something in return for helping me out. It's a big sort of commitment to publish a book, and I'm really passionate about business education, and I've created this little brand called Ask JT, which is about helping really at the moment educate our current clients about science and other business skills that they might need as well. And I want you to be part of that initial community as well. And that's unity from the 7 principles of human persuasion. I'm only going to do 500 copies. I can't do any more. I literally haven't got the capacity. I'm really busy with my work life, and we've done the calculations that really I've only got capacity to physically sign 500. And by the way, that's scarcity from the 7 principles of human persuasion. If you want to order a copy, it's scienceofbusiness.co.uk, and I'd be really, really grateful if you could support me, and I hope you've got something from today. If you wanted just a sneak peek of what's inside the book, there's lots more than this. There's 21 short chapters in the book, but I'll talk about things like how Pareto analysis can help your business, the science behind positive habits and how to form positive habits. And I take you on a journey about how I learned French, and I now speak French to a C1 standard. But that was about forming positive habits. I educate you about personality types. I've mentioned Belbin today. There's also things called Myers-Briggs. So I talk about that. And how to learn more effectively, how to absorb information more effectively. I've learned a thing or two from learning French. So when I had a go at learning some other skills, I approached them completely differently because I'd learned so much about learning. And I'll also talk to you about the science of coaches and mentors. That's a fascinating area of science called human performance science. Plus, there's lots more in there as well. And the book is really easy reading, a bit like today's webinar. just easy to consume, but a fairly high impact. And I hope I have captured my zeal and enthusiasm for business and for science and for all things in life, really, within the book. And I think you really, really enjoy it. So anyway, thank you for listening. I hope you've really enjoyed the webinar this morning. I'm more than happy to take questions. I think we can unmute you if you want to do that, or if you want to put something in the chat box, I'm happy to answer questions as well. Okay, thanks. I see Greg's ordered a copy. Thank you, Greg. That's very kind of you. Very, very kind of you. I think you'll really, really enjoy. I've known Greg for a number of years, and really excited for you to be able to read the book as well. Thanks, Sally. I'm pleased you've enjoyed it. How long did it take to write the book? Oh, God. So I started on the 1st of February, and I believe in these things called 90 Days of Massive Action. And I've pinched that from another author, Michael Heppel, actually. But it's about forming positive habits. And I've over the years done these 90 days of massive action projects. And one of them was learning French, actually, which turned into a 5-year adventure. But the principle is that if you hit something really hard for 90 days, then you can form a positive habit of writing, which is what I was trying to do with the book. So I wrote the vast majority of the content in 90 days. I'd written something like 35,000 words of it, and there are about 56,000 words in total. The problem's been the editing. And I really wanted to publish for my 40th birthday, but I didn't quite. I think that was just a ridiculous goal to set. My wife, however, will be pleased to see when this book is finished, because I have worked pretty hard at it, and I think she's fed up with it. So there you go. Any other questions? What's the next 90-day project, says Greg. Oh my God. I don't know. I might have 90 days of massive rest, because I am pretty tired from doing it. We'll see. We will see. I normally set them around New Year. I set the task around New Year, and then I start them on the 1st of February. And the reason I do that is because you might be aware that the self-assessment deadline means that things go fairly crazy at work. So although I set the goal for the 90-day project, it's like a New Year's resolution that I don't actually start them to the 1st of February. So it's probably a little bit early in the year to be thinking about the next one. Anything else for anyone? I think that's all the questions. Anyway, thank you again for joining this morning. I hope you really have enjoyed that, and I hope you will buy a copy of the book. And I'm sure you'll get something really interesting. And it's maybe described as the ramblings of my mind, but I think there's a lot of really valuable content in there. So anyway, thank you again for listening, and I'll finish there.